Hello. Hello, watchers, and welcome back, listeners. Coming to you from the Plains of Eternal Carnage, it's your host, Fran Eden. Today, I'm on page 2. Today, we are bringing you Hoodwink, Huskar, Invoker, Smol Invoker, and Io. Alright, without further ado.
Wow, I've never seen so many interesting people to kill in one place. I'm sure heaps will be friendly too.
Squirrel. Is Hoodwink a squirrel or a fox? I think they're a squirrel. Hoodwink. Every guide near the wood Tomokan gave me the same warning. Don't try to find Hoodwink. So I didn't. Instead, I let Hoodwink find me. Making camp, I laid out some snares I'd acquired from Rattletrap to stop less clever predators and theoretically to trick Hoodwink into thinking that she was dealing with a dimwit. Even before I could pretend to fall asleep, a flying acorn tore bark away from the oak above my head. She was smaller than I expected, her crossbow nearly as large as herself, yet she held it with more authority than any trained member of the Bronze Legion. "No one traps in my forest," she sneered. I calmly confessed my subterfuge and requested an interview. She was happy to talk, all right. She talked about the food she took from my bag, she talked about the gold she stole from my pouch, and she talked about the directions to leave the wood, Tomokan, before she changed her mind. She handed my snares back, chopped to pieces. It was, frankly, more than I expected. Mossgrave.
Huskar!
Huskar was one of the first characters I played in this game. I picked him up because I thought he was sick. He looked super cool. I was not very good at him, but it was really fun. He's actually become an echolalia. Him and Kunka are like my two big echolalias from this game. Yelling, "There's always more to sacrifice," and "Step lively, your admiral's on board" is hilarious to me, and I do not know why. Huskar. I've been warned about the dangers of the Howling Weald. Ogres, direwolves, hellbears, so I wasn't eager to track Huskar there. Unfortunately, that's where Huskar was. Luckily, Huskar himself was friendlier than I expected. Hunched over a blazing campfire, he seemed almost eager to share a meal in his tail. As he'd begun speaking of his travels, however, we were set upon by a pack of hungry wolves. I figured I'd penned my last dispatch as they circled. A single fighter, no matter how skilled, was no match for a dozen giant canines that surrounded us. The first leapt upon him, knocking him down, and I was surely next. But as the pack leader bit into Huskar's meaty shoulder, the berserker's muscle rippled and stretched. In a flash, the wolf had been kicked across the clearing. Another lunged for me, only to have his throat meet with an alarming suddenness Huskar's obsidian dagger. Still more wolves came, still more wolves fell. Every bite, every mauling seemed to redouble the berserker's fury. By the time the final wolf slinked away, Huskar stood, bloodied, but somehow stronger than before. His eyes shimmered with rage. I decided I'd slink off too. Good kind.
Glorious invocation!
Large Invoker. As Invoker spoke, the magic's orbs around him lit and dimmed and changed color as if to emphasize the emotion of his stories. By the 10th hour of our interview, it began to dawn on me with slow horror. The man might never stop talking. He was proud of his exploits, and they were impressive. I cannot deny of that. The life story of a nearly immortal mage, it turns out, takes a little time to tell. An Invoker has a legendary memory. He's able to recall almost every detail of almost every experience he's had. And what I am learning is a very adventurous, very interesting, and a very, very long life. Of course, adventurous and interesting would have been how he described it. Listening to it without interlude, the more apt term that came to mind was arduous. My hand began to ache upon noticing this. Invoker asked if I wanted him to cast a spell to have my quill write on its own. Out of professionalism, I reluctantly declined. As the sun rose on day 2 of the interview, I sorely regretted this choice. Musgrave. Small Invoker.
All can be known, and known by me.
I didn't mean for it to go that far, Carl cried over the smoldering ruin of a highwayman. It was clear to me that despite all his bragging, he'd never actually killed someone before. Wiping his tears away, he told me that it wasn't fair for someone to just jump out at us like that. Since arriving in our time a few weeks earlier, Carl had been largely kept for study at Ultimere Academy, both for his study of the mystical arts and the other's wizard study of this preternaturally gifted young mage. Magically transporting to distant lands is difficult even for the most powerful wizard, let alone moving eons into the future. But here was this child, a very loud, very brash boy who did it on his own. Elders at the Academy failed to replicate Carl's spell, while the Invoker of our time refused to believe that it was anything but a strange impostor. Frustrated, Carl at last demanded a journey outside, vowing that this time I'll prove myself to you. What happened those other times, Carl refused to say. Smol. And Io. Can't really get Io noises out of this. The flats stretched white and unbroken under a sky so wide it hurt my eyes. The air tasted staticky and tingled like salt. Io is supposedly everywhere, but rumors said it could be seen here. A soft, steady thrum pulsed around me like a heartbeat. Then the wisp drifted into view. Whatever Io is, it's older than time, let alone language. Those who have met it said it only speaks through cooperation and harmonic tones. Sometimes it sings, a nomad told me. Major key means it likes you. Dissonance means run. Feeling foolish, I asked where it came from. A shimmering major third rippled in all directions, a sweeping gesture of omnipresence. I asked why it bonds with some and not others. A drifting minor seventh oscillated back uncertainly, like a shrug. Finally, Io spiraled skyward, scattering motes of light. I stared at my notebook, unsure whether I'd nearly comprehended the cosmic force, or just staged an interview with myself. Quibbins. That is hour 5 for today. Next week, we get to do another of my favorite heroes. So thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful evening, and remember, step lively! Your admiral's on board.